Dr. Jazz.
Okay.
You're in Portland, right? Now for some time.
Yes, I live in Portland, Oregon. I've
Wow.
been here since about 2011.
Wow. Oh, quite long already.
Yeah, and I the main reason I moved here, really the only reason initially, was to teach at Portland State University.
Okay.
So,
Hey, it's a
yeah,
gig.
it's a gig. Yeah, I mean, I'm older, I'm 54, and ever since I decided to start a family, I wanted to have,
Oh,
in the United States, health insurance is a big issue for us. So, to have health insurance as a self-employed musician is not the best. It's not the most economical. So, uh, our system is that health insurance is tied to your job. And if you don't have a job with a company or a university, you have to pay, and you have to get an independent plan. This is one of the things that I think Barack Obama was trying to
yeah,
fix. And so
exactly.
I know people who have done Obamacare, and they liked it. I mean, it's still not great. I mean, I think not to go off on a tangent about health insurance, but
No, but I know, yeah. It's
yeah.
different.
So how is it in Slovenia?
I mean, I teach, but I have my own music school, so I have my own company, and I pay monthly, like as a self-employed person, monthly insurance and pension fund, which compared to the
Hmm.
States, it's probably insanely nothing. I remember I did a tour with Paul McCandless years ago, and he told me he paid like $1,000 a month or something like that, and he still had to buy some heart medicine or something. And I was like, Jesus, man, that's insane, like, and it's probably not even so much. It goes even higher, right? These amounts, the insurance in the States.
It depend. I mean, it depends on if you have children. I mean,
Yeah,
self-employed health insurance has been. I mean, again, I think Obamacare changed that, but it's just a ripoff. I mean,
yeah,
it's don't get me started. I mean, I think
no, it's
our capitalist system is extremely flawed, I think, in terms of how it could be. But,
yeah.
again, it has to do with politics, and we don't want to necessarily go there, but
No, no, I know what you mean. Yeah,
but that's the main reason I'm here, is because I felt like, as a self-employed person, it was, and I and everyone in my family, we need to be able to go to a doctor when we want to. So,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
that was really important to me. And honestly, Portland State, I taught, my first full-time job was in Winnipeg, Canada.
really. Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
yeah, I taught there for 2 years before I got this job. And there were some pretty serious pros and cons with that job because it's so cold there. I mean, that was one thing, you know, and it's so isolated, and my wife hated it. And, I just couldn't see living there for the long term, although it is Canada. So,
Yeah, different,
Canada,
more
healthcare
socially.
is
Yeah,
more social, but,
yeah.
Winnipeg is a little tough. So, I got this job at Portland State, and I thought Portland would be a cool place to live. It has its pros and cons, as well, just in terms of a place to live.
Come on,
But
Trailblazers. You have the Trailblazers, Blazers.
I don't
Come on.
follow that.
Ah,
I don't
shit.
follow
Okay.
that at all.
Okay.
Yeah, are they doing well? I mean, I have no idea.
Ish. No, Lillard left last year, so not anymore. But they're building up, so it's gonna
Uh-huh,
be
yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I don't consider myself a Portlander. I grew up in Maryland, and I lived in New York for a long time, so I consider
yeah,
myself an East Coast person. But I've sort of tried to adjust to life out here. And, I think from traveling so many years, like I am adaptable, but doesn't mean that I'm going to necessarily think of myself as a West Coast person. The
Mhm.
West
Yeah,
Coast
it's a different
vibe,
vibe. Yeah, yeah,
really very different. Musically, it's very different. And, again, coming from being in New York in the 90s, like, and
yeah,
being on the East Coast, like, it is just a whole different thing. And it's hard for people to understand that who are really from here or who are mostly here. Like, they're just like, oh, they have a view of the music in terms of what they hear, and it's all based on people who live here.
yeah.
And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, if you take me, for example, if you think I'm good and you heard me in New York at a jam session, and I played first, I played the first song, and then there were 20 other pianists, you wouldn't even remember that I played.
Oh, come on. No, but yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah, but
You'd
yeah,
be like, oh yeah, didn't you play? Like, it wouldn't be memorable because there would be somebody else amazing and somebody else amazing and somebody else amazing. So the level of
yeah.
talent and ability in New York is still, I mean, not to say there aren't, all levels, but like just the depth
Mm.
is something that we don't really have here in Portland. It's a what they the way they describe the scene here is that it punches above its weight, meaning that like for a city town of this size, it has a better jazz scene that you would think.
Okay.
There is a scene here, and there's places to play, and we have a jazz club, the
Oh,
1905,
really? Okay.
and there's a few other places, but
Yeah, it's
and
not
again,
comparable. Yeah,
it's not really comparable. I mean, it is what
yeah.
it is, and I try to temper my expectations and still go to New York now that the pandemic is not what it was. I'm able to travel a
You
bit
can
more
travel.
and
Yeah, yeah. No,
think
New York has been crazy always. I remember talking once to Drew Grass, and he said like when he came to the scene in the 80s, and someone said like, "Yeah, give me your number." And that guy, I don't know who he was talking to, took out like the book, and then he wrote down Drew's name, and above him were like Eddie Gomez and Mark Johnson's phone number, and he was like, "Man, these people are never gonna call me." There's like, and that's the level we're talking about, right? I mean, actually, it's still
yeah, I
crazy.
mean,
It's insane. Yeah,
Drew is I was fortunate to play,
yeah, yeah, I
Drew
know.
did a couple of my records and I played with him quite a bit, but we played together a lot in the early 90s. In fact, Drew is on my first demo tape. I think I
Really?
paid him like $50. This was in maybe 1989,
Already? Wow,
1990,
okay.
maybe. Yeah. I was just starting to play piano. I had been playing trumpet and drums, and he was always down to play, you know what I mean? He just
Yeah.
liked to play. He was, starting to he was sort of back and forth, but we used to play a lot of gigs together. We would play at Stouffer's Hotel, and it was 5 sets a night, and I would play the first set solo. Then the second set was piano and bass duo. And I would always record it. So I was like, man, I'm playing with
Oh,
Drew
wow.
Grass. He's a bad dude. And then we would play 3 sets with a vocalist.
Wow.
I remember because I think he would drink a little bit, and so as the sets went on, he's a funny guy. He
I know,
like has
yeah.
a
I know. We toured
really
together
dry
once and
sense of
played. Yeah,
humor.
yeah. I
So
loved it.
as the night went on, he would always have a quip like when the singer called a tune, he would always say something really funny about the tune, and I was like, man, this dude is great bass player and funny.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, he's one of the greats.
Yeah, I listened to Stomping Ground today. I have it on CD, and I just put it on just to get in the vibe for the internet. I was like, damn,
Oh yeah, yeah,
such a him and Billy also. It's such a nice connection.
yeah,
It's beautiful to
yeah,
hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was really pleased with how that came out.
yeah, it's a
And
nice
all
record.
those steeplechase records were all really mostly, you do it in like a couple hours. When I started to record for Steeplechase in the 90s, and that was 1995, I did my
Mm,
first one for them. Um, I really, wanted it to be a good take, and I would do multiple takes. But at a certain point, I realized that the vibe for those is one take, two at the most.
yeah,
It's almost like a gig, and I just started to see how, like Billy especially, like if you did more than two takes, he would start to really just go left because he was like, let's experiment. Like, and I, I don't, there was a couple tunes on there where we did multiple takes, and the more takes we did, the more out it got. It was really interesting,
he got bored,
you
yeah,
know?
so he wanted to,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But Billy also is an incredible force, an incredible spirit.
yeah, yeah,
Um, very fortunate to get to play with him a number of
yeah.
times over the years.
No, it's amazing. I think I have you on many records as a band leader and as a sideman as well. But I think you're probably one of the few guys who actually made records on Crisscross, Fresh Sound, and Steeplechase. Kind of European labels that actually did New York guys. Either you're on Fresh Sound or Crisscross. Rarely it was like, and you're on all of these labels. So I was like, damn man, okay, that's fantastic. You've done so much. So
Well, Steeplechase kind of came around by accident. And I don't, I wrote about this on my blog a long time ago, but the way it happened, again, I was very fresh in New York. And in fact, I had been on a tour with Gary Thomas,
yeah,
and one of the weeks fell out of the tour. So we had to go home for a week and just chill. Like it just came up. It was like, okay, you're not going to have this week. I think it was like maybe a six week tour or 5 week tour, and so
mm,
the middle of the tour was just canceled. So like he was on, I believe, was it Saudades Tornin, which used
probably,
to
yeah,
be
yeah.
yeah, I'm spacing on the um,
Thomas Stosans. Saudades.
Thomas
Yeah, yeah,
Alden,
yeah.
yes, who died, unfortunately. But so a lot of those tours, it was like they would find something here and find something at the end of the tour, and then it was like the middle of the tour was always a little bit like, how are you going to fill it up? So this was the week that fell out, and so we went home, and so I was really jet lagging hard, and I was just tired and but sitting around with nothing to do, and I get this call from Jed Levy, who's a great
Yeah,
saxophonist,
yeah.
still in New York, great composer. And he called me and he said, "Hey, I have a record date. I want," and he had a pianist on deck for the date who had some personal issues, let's say. And I won't say who it is, but um, he said, "Hey, I'm not sure if this person is going to come to the recording. Are you free tonight?" I said, I'm free. I'm just home, I'm home by surprise. He said, all right, I'll let you know. So 7 o'clock, it's 7 p.m., but I'm jet lagged. So I'm like putting on my pajamas, getting into bed, my futon bed in my little room there. And I get a call from Jed. He's like, hey, so-and-so is not here. Will you come and record? And I was like, well, it's going to take me an hour to get to Manhattan. What if I get there and the guy's there? Like maybe he's late. He's like, all right, I'll give you minimum $100 just if you
Okay,
if the
that's
guy's
fair.
already
Yeah.
here, I'll give you some money. I'll give you $100 just for coming out. But if he's not here by the time you get here, you can record because I don't think he's coming. So I get there and the guy's not there. So they're like, okay, here's the music.
Oh,
And
wow.
it
Okay.
was Jed, Ron McClure, and Jerry Gibbs, the drummer,
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Okay. Interesting band.
who was a crazy dude. But I just went in and read the music, and so then Niels Winter from Steeplechase, he was like, "Oh, well, this unnamed pianist was supposed to do his own date. This was a Wednesday night. he said this person was supposed to do their own date Friday, and you want to do your own record? I was like, yeah. And I was like so excited. I didn't even sleep for 2 days because I was so excited. I was sitting up all night, like, what should I record? What should I play? And he said that Ralph Peterson was supposed to do that date. I was like, well, yeah, let's get Ralph Peterson.
Oh, that's activism then. Okay, okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to remember. I think I thought about getting Ed Howard. I'm sort of feel like maybe he didn't want to do it or something. I mean, I love Ed. Ed is an
Sure.
amazing player. Maybe he wasn't free, but I ended up getting Dwayne Burno. And so, I mean, that was my first record, and I was very nervous,
Sure.
and also hadn't slept. And I'm still happy with what it represents. I mean, I think playing with both of them was really a challenge, and I've always sort of been interested in challenges musically. So, and I like to, even as a band leader, I like to listen to whomever I'm playing with. So, to me, there's just so much. Ralph and Dwayne, who I don't know how much they played together outside of just a few times. I'm not sure if they even dug each other or really even knew each other that well. We did do maybe one other gig together with
Okay.
Jimmy Dean, but other than that, I don't think that was like, the way the Washingtons, like, Kenny Washington and Peter Washington, they're
Yeah.
not related, but they're always together, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Or, like Ray,
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah. So many rhythm sections that.
Buster and Billy Hart, or Buster Williams and Lenny White, or
Dave Hall and Jack DeJohnette or whoever.
exactly.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
types of things. I don't think that was a thing like that. So they were sort of feeling it out. But that and the recording quality, it was engineered by a guy named Josiah Gluck, who I think he works on Saturday Night Live now. But he did a great job, live to 2-track, so no editing. And again, it was like maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Sure.
It wasn't, and it's standards, one original, but I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is just, I mean, I was just on cloud 9, just like my own record, and with these heavy cats, like this is what it is, and that's how that happened. And I did a bunch more for People Chase, but I did end up doing 3 for Fresh Sound.
Yeah.
That was I would say partially through my connections in Spain.
Yeah, it's
in
like
the
Spanish
90s.
with Perico and all those guys. Yeah, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
who I haven't seen in years. I saw Mario Rossi maybe a couple years before the pandemic. I was in Valencia. The connection I had there was, and I don't know if you know the story, but when I moved to New York, I got involved with a pianist named Mercedes Rossi.
I know. Okay.
Romantically involved with
Yeah.
her, and make a long story short, and it was around that time that I did that record. Is that it was she had been suffering with stomach pain. She went back to Spain, and they said that there was some cancer, and that she was going to have treatment. But it turns out that it was stage 4. It was like
Oh shit.
but they didn't tell her that. Her parents didn't want her to know that it was hopeless,
Wow.
so she was so it was a couple weeks after that she passed, but so that was how I met some of those people, is just going to Spain and having a connection with, and plus the drummer Mark Midalta.
Yeah.
He was one of my roommates when I first moved to New York, so.
Okay. So you had some connections there. Yeah.
Yeah, so with him and the Rossis, and then I met Perico eventually, and I really love Perico Sambriat's
Yeah.
playing,
He's
and
such an underrated player.
I haven't played with those dudes in many, many years, maybe at least a decade or 2, which is a shame because I really liked that group, and we did 2 records for Steeplechase, and I was really happy with the third one, which is called Como la vida
Yeah,
puede
yeah, I
ser,
have that one.
which,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I was really, I thought that would be something. The problem is some of these labels, these European labels, it's more of like a very expensive hobby.
yeah. It's true, actually. Yeah, it's true.
So they don't really promote it the way like Verve or,
Yeah,
Columbia. They don't have a massive advertising campaign. It's like you look at the Bad Plus, and when they came out, it was like, they were everywhere. And they
yep,
had a many, like a team of marketing, you know. And so that's how they became. I mean, I don't know if they're considered that now, but they basically played every jazz
yeah,
festival
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
universe,
yeah,
and if you don't do that, it's just really hard to go beyond that, anything. So you have to, I mean, this is one thing I talk about with the students, and I say, look, I'm not the best person for music business advice, because if I was, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in my mansion in Los Angeles. I'd be, I'd be living in Hawaii, like, what's his name? The guitar player,
Hmm.
Carlos Santana. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
I'd
he's in
be.
Hawaii. Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
I think he lives in Hawaii. I mean, he's got more money than.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's Santana. Yeah,
So, who I got to play with recently, but we can talk about that
with
later.
Santana.
Well, okay, so
Oh,
this
I
is
just think you
cutting to
mentioned
last
it, but
year. Yeah, I know we're jumping around a lot, but
oh, it's okay.
so I used to tour with Jack DeJohnette,
Yeah.
and we had a band that wasn't super active, but I would say from 2010 to 2016, like I was playing with him, you know, semi regularly, and so here and there we've done a few things. Actually, no, I hadn't played with him in a long time, and he called me to do this thing. Actually, Matt Garrison called me to do like a birthday celebration with Jack. So this was last August, and we did it up in um, Kingston, New York. And it was this, so it was a big, like a tribute to Miles Davis. And it
Mm.
was a super, and I've been on a couple of these things where it's like an all-star thing, but for some reason I'm on it because I'm not on that level like at all.
Mm.
And so he was like, yeah, and I'm talking to Jack about it, and he's like, at first Jack wanted me to play trumpet on it, keyboard and trumpet, because I used to play pocket trumpet with his band, piano and a couple tunes on pocket trumpet, and I don't know why, because I'm not really a very good trumpet player, but he just liked the idea of somebody who could
Double
just
kind of.
pull out a trumpet
Yeah.
every now and then. Yeah, so like I would play pocket trumpet and be like Don Cherry a little bit, to him anyway. So he was like, well, maybe you could play trumpet. I'm like, he was like, well, maybe I can get Terrence Blanchard. I was like, please get Terrence Blanchard. Like that's, I'm not even close to Terrence. Yeah, that's a whole. And then he was like, oh, well, Terrence can't do it, so you're the man. I'm like, oh God. So I'm like trying to get the trumpet, and then he ended up getting Wallace Roney Jr., which was, I mean, he is an incredible
Yeah.
musician, really, really incredible. I mean, and I'm like, whew, could just play keyboard. So it's, I mean, gosh, who was on it? I mean, who wasn't on it? It was like Don Byron,
Yeah.
Wallace Roney Jr., Matt Garrison, Cindy Blackman, what's his name? Luisito, the percussionist. He had Vernon Reed
Oh,
on
wow.
guitar. He had basically the whole Living Color band was, because they were on the road, so they just all played.
Will Calhoun and
It
those
was great.
guys. Yeah.
Bill Calhoun. I mean, it
Yeah.
was their lead singer was named Corey.
Corey Glover. Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean it was unbelievable,
Fantastic.
and gosh, and then me for some reason. I'm like, why am I even here? But so and then he got, because Cindy was on it, Carlos wanted to play.
Ah, wow. Okay.
Carlos Santana comes in and,
What
I'm like,
did
what
you
do
play
I
with
say?
Carlos?
He had this Miles Davis tune that's on a weird soundtrack record. I don't even remember what it's called. It's almost like Blue and Green-ish.
Okay.
It's on some Italian piano player's record.
Wow. Okay.
And I'd never heard the song before, and we played that, and then we played, gosh, I don't, we, a couple blues tunes,
Amazing.
stuff, some of the Fusion Miles stuff. He would just kind of dip in and out. When
Yeah,
he
yeah.
played like the blues, though, when it was like just a regular blues, man, it was like, I'm like, that's the stuff. It was incredible. It was really incredible, but like Carlos Santana doesn't know theory
Sure.
or chord. I don't think he really knows maybe what the notes are called.
No, no, yeah, probably
He is
not him.
the most pure ear musician. If you play it, he'll find it.
It's like
But you
Jeff
can't.
Beck, kind of that vein, probably. Or
Was Jeff Beck like that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. He played
Wow,
everything by ear, and it's which is incredible. So
that is incredible.
yeah,
I mean, I love his stuff. Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, look, I think in a way the ear trumps everything because, like, for example, if you go to Spain and you could read Spanish, that is something. But if you can't hear it and speak it, that you're really missing. So some
mm,
people can speak a little bit of a lot of languages and maybe they don't necessarily know the correct grammar, but they can get around.
yeah,
So I've met a number of musicians who really only could just play by ear, but in a way like that was in some ways because you really hear it and you play it back. Whereas
yeah,
a lot of times what the music is supposed to be can't really come off the page.
yeah.
Like for example, um, you could give the Charlie Parker Omnibook to a classical saxophonist and they would read it perfectly,
Sure.
but it would sound terrible because they don't swing, they don't know what Charlie Parker sounds like. I mean, this is a,
No, it's true. Yeah, yeah,
hypothesis.
absolutely.
I mean, I've seen classical pianists try to, like, there was a guy who used to come in my building when I was at Peabody, and he was like, "Do you have any jazz that I could read? Because I have a restaurant gig, but I don't play jazz. I only play classical. But maybe if you have some stuff that I could read." And I said, "Well, I have this book of Bill Evans transcriptions. Why don't you give it a try?" So he put it up on the piano, and he read it note for note, but it sounded terrible
Can you imagine?
because there was no swing. Everything was staccato and it just sounded horrendous. I'm like, dude, like you've never heard a jazz record? Like it was weird. So that's why I say like the ear is really, especially in jazz. I mean, you got to develop the ear to a point where you can at least, it's different from classical music in that
Yeah,
respect, where a classical musician can. I mean, to me, the best classical musicians, they go the extra mile. They listen, they listen, they listen, and they do everything, and they have good ears. But it is possible to develop as a classical musician. And I'm saying this in a very broad,
yeah,
European classical music as it's perceived in the 21st century. 20th, 21st century is like you look at the page and you read what's on the page, and that's it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, yeah,
you don't get everything else. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
anyway, so getting
Interesting.
back to Carlos Santana, but he's a wild dude. I think he definitely did. I think he did a few drugs here and there, you know.
Probably.
And he just would say this stuff that was just cracking me up. He was like, he would just look at me. I'm like, I'm just meeting him for the first time. He's like, melody is going to heal the world. We're going to give the world a big hug with melody. And I'm like, yeah. Like, I'm like, I don't even know what to say. Like, yeah, you're right. Like, I don't know. Like, if you say so, like, it's just weird. But it was a great experience, and people came out, and it was just great to. It's always great to be around Jack, and
Sure. Yeah.
I think just the night was just a demonstration of what Jack DeJohnette can not only bring, but also bring out of other people.
Mm. Yeah.
I have so much respect for him musically. Like, I mean, even Jack, like the first part of the concert, they just had these big gongs. He has these gongs in his house. They're like maybe 40 inches or something. And he just came out and played. Just, you could have had that the whole night. Just the way he just has this
Yeah.
way of everything he does. Just so musical, you know. He picked it great, you know. He just played some stuff. I'm like, that's pretty cool, you know what I mean? Like, so he just has this sense, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, he plays bass. His piano playing is it's just
Piano
so
is amazing.
musical.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's something that it's hard to teach that.
Yeah.
You know
How
what I
did you
mean?
meet Jack,
It's like,
by the way? When did you
okay,
first
so
start playing with him?
I'll tell you how we met. So, I was playing I played a lot in the 2000s with Don Byron, like a lot, like many of his projects. And I was playing with his big band. He had a big band at the Iridium.
Really? I didn't know
And
this.
it's
Okay.
probably 2008, I want to say. And so one of the nights he said, "Hey, Sunday, there's a rehearsal with Jack DeJohnette at Montana Studios, and it's supposed to be Edsel Gomez, and Edsel can't make the rehearsal, but can you come and sub for him at the rehearsal?" I was like, "Yeah." And you know, I'm excited because I'm like, man, I've never met Jack before, as he's one of my heroes musically, like, and I said, man, at least I could say, hey, I made a rehearsal with Jack DeJohnette, you know. And so I get there and Jack is there, and it's just me and Jack for a while. Like nobody was there. Like everyone was late. So he's just very, you know, he's very down to earth and he's very non-assuming. And so he just played some of his stuff on piano and I just tried to learn it real quick. And then he said, okay, can you follow that? So I tried to play what he played, and then he got on the drums. Also terrible drums, like the house kit, like, you know, some rock kit, this terrible cymbals. And he sounded amazing on it. Like he, again, like just the way he gets it sound.
Touch. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And I was like, man, this is cool. Just me and Jack duo, you know, unbelievable, you know. Then the bass player showed up, Jerome Harris, and then I think Luisito got there eventually. And Don forgot. He forgot about the rehearsal. He spaced, and Jack was calling him. He was like, "Hey, man, you coming to the rehearsal? Oh, what? You forgot? You already drove upstate? All right, well, see you next time." It was funny. So I'm like, oh, this is really amazing, you know. And then at the end of the rehearsal, Jack was like, "Let me get your number." So I give him my number. He's like, "Yeah, I'll keep your number in the book if I ever need a pianist." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." So I get a call a year later. I'm on my way to a gig and I see like the upstate area code. I'm like, "Who is this?" And it's Jack. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm starting a band and I want you to play keyboard." He's like, "Yeah, I kept your number from that rehearsal." I'm like, okay, cool, you know. So, you know, we had this band with Dave Fuzinski on guitar and Rudresh Mahanthapa on alto saxophone, Jerome Harris. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. We did one record. Man, I can't even remember the name of it. It was it a live record?
Really, I have to find it. I don't have that one. I have to find it.
It's somewhere on the internet.
Okay, I'll try to
I'm
find
sure
it.
it's on Spotify. I'll have to look, but
I have
I
that
think
record with him and Larry, your record. I have that one, but not
yeah, that's my,
this
yeah,
group.
that
Yeah.
so I did that. That was 2013, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was cool.
Yeah. Amazing.
I have a record. I might put it out next year. I'm trying to think of what I want to do, but we were going to do a record release for that, and I got a gig at the Iridium. No, not the Iridium, at the Jazz Standard. I got a gig at the Jazz Standard. I said it's going to be Jack and Larry Grenadier, and Larry didn't. I don't know. He said that his father had died, so I don't know. It was a little mysterious, but for some reason he didn't want to do it. So
Mm.
it was odd the way he I think he was down to do it, and then he was like, "Oh, I can't make it because my father just died or whatever." And I was like, "All right." So I got Linda O, and Linda, man, she
She's
came and
incredible. Yeah.
destroyed. She destroyed. It's like her record. I mean, she plays so much
Yeah.
stuff, and because I think she was like, Jack DeJohnette, I'm gonna really do it. I mean, she always sounds good, but like she obliterated, and I just was, and it was just sitting on my hard drive for years because the sound was weird. There was so much bass, and I was like, I can't really put this out. You can't hear the piano, but I had somebody remaster it,
Mm.
and it actually sounds really good. So
Mm. Yeah, you should. We do it, man. I mean,
I think I want to. It was it was a great night. It was a really good night. So we'll see what happens.
fantastic. Oh yeah. How
Yep.
did you then invite actually Jack to your record? Because him
Well,
being a sideman, he didn't do so much sideman stuff after 2010 almost. So it's quite one of those rare treats to have him.
well, I think part of it was that I agreed to do it um, in what's the area called? It's like this Catskills.
Yeah.
Is it the Catskills? Well, it's somewhere up. It's upstate. So there's a studio upstate that I think he turned me on to the studio. He said I already have drums there, so I'll do it if it's not a lot for me to like go into the city or whatever,
Oh,
and
fantastic.
I can just stay home or whatever. And you just come up and I stayed at his house, so it's got a really beautiful, you know, really beautiful property up in Willow, New York. A bunch of cats live up there. I think Pat Metheny's up
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
and
Yep.
Sandra Wilson used to be up there. Dave Holland maybe. Anyway, but so um, I I went and stayed at his house, and then we did the record. It was just one day, and then and it's funny because I think it was we recorded the day before my birthday, if my memory serves. So it was like December 28th. So I went back to Jack's to stay. So the next day was my birthday, and so when I got up, Jack wanted to play "Happy Birthday" for me and sing. So, and I just didn't get to my phone quick enough. But he played and he sang "Happy Birthday," but he accompanied himself playing in the style of McCoy Tyner.
Wow.
Happy birthday to you, gong, gong, happy birthday, gong, gong. Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
mean, I wish I would have recorded it because it was hilarious,
Amazing.
But yeah, so
It's
yeah,
wonderful. Yeah, you
it's
got to do that with him. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely one of the highlights of my side person career, and the fact that he was willing to do my record. And
Yeah.
I think that one is the one people seem to gravitate towards because it's Jack. I mean, I've done a lot of other records,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I was really happy. I mean, it's just something about the way he plays. You can't teach anybody how to play like that. I mean, all you can do is say, well, listen to Jack and try to think about how he colors the music. And to me, that's sort of what I look for in a drummer, is somebody who knows what they're hearing.
Mm.
And I mean, not just drummers, but some musicians, like they play their instrument. And the thing about jazz is that it isn't just about playing your instrument, because there's lots of people that play their instrument well,
Yeah.
and they don't necessarily do as much as somebody like others. And you're like, well, why does so and so seem to be more busy or get more accolades in jazz, where I'm playing all this stuff on my instrument, but that's not what it's about. It's about how do you listen and react
Mm.
to other players, and
Yeah.
to me, getting better at jazz is, I mean, you could work on your instrument. You can work on transcribing, building your vocabulary, learning more tunes, playing in odd meters, playing fast, whatever. But it has to be the better to me, the best music is always about how the players are gelling together.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and so that's something that I think, again, as an educator, I feel like we have to encourage that. It can't just be like, oh, well, you know all your major modes and you know all your melodic minor modes and now you know all your, you know, bebop patterns and you transcribe the solo and you can play Cherokee at 400.
Yeah.
But I mean, to me, it's about having the intuitive, not listening, and also an intuitive thing, like almost being able to not just listen and react, because that to me is something that younger musicians lack
Yeah.
often. They're just like,
Yep.
okay, they're all, a lot of them they're playing simultaneously, but not together.
It's autopilot many times. I think,
Autopilot, yeah.
you
People are
know,
like, I have this I play, you know.
yeah, I did like a master class, a workshop 2 years ago, and Lionel Lueke was there like for
Yeah.
1 day master classing, and I had a combo and everything, and guitarists, and you know, Lionel did the master class, right? He invited like four guys, trumpet, bass, piano, and drums, and he said like, okay, play something. There will never be another you. Okay, cool. As ballad, okay. Sick. The drummer counts off like, and there you go, like da 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 be do do da. He stops like after 3 bars, like, what are you doing? Yeah, we're playing There Will Never Be Another You ballad, right? And he's like, well, that's like the most boring shit ever, you know, like drummer, why brushes? Yeah, it's a ballad. Well, so okay, yeah, cool. Bass player, come on, you know, piano player, stop with the thumb, bum. And you know, after like 1 hour of this, and these were people who were graduates of university in Europe, of some. He actually made it then sound like, you know, like music. It's not like a hotel brunch. So it's that's exactly what you're, you know, saying. Like this, okay, ballad, okay, brushes. I don't even listen to what the rest is doing. The bass player half notes, or you know.
I mean, again, this is where it becomes an art.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of different ways to frame it, but to me, and again, like I said, it's not you can, I think, I don't think of it as teaching people to do this. I think about it as pointing them in that direction.
Yeah.
So they can find it for themselves, because they have to understand it for themselves. Like, if you're just getting people like to sort of pass through barriers, you know, like the Berkeley system where it's like you have your levels,
Yeah.
you know, that is, I mean, I'm all about the skill. I think skill is really important. You know, you don't want it to just be like, do your own thing, but it's sort of a paradox, because it's like, okay, you gotta be able to do all these things. Just like in classical, it's like you need to know your scales, you need to be able to read skills. Skills are important, but then you get a situation where everybody can communicate.
Yeah.
You know, lots of people can talk. I mean, everybody can speak language, you know, whatever your language is, and other languages, you know, and say something. But so why, it's not necessarily the what, it's the why, as in, why should we listen to you?
Yeah.
What are you bringing
Yeah.
that is unique, that is heartfelt, that is special, beyond just like, hey, like, for example, There Will Never Be Another You. Right now, although school is out, but let's say, you know, we could actually say, like, you know, somewhere in the world, somebody's playing There Will Never Be Another You.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
You know, and it's like, why? You know, because again, I mean, so what we don't want to have is, I mean, again, there's the tradition, there's this and that,
Yeah.
but one of the real privileges in being a jazz musician is that we can make our own choices. We have a lot more leeway than classical students, classical musicians in general.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're, you know, first violin, or you're in the violin section in a major orchestra, I mean, this is going to sound really controversial, but like there is a deep skill in that, but there isn't a lot of choice making in that.
That's for sure. Yeah.
You're serving the vision of whoever the composer is, and you can have fun doing that. I played trumpet in orchestras, and I did have a lot of fun, and it's amazing to do that. But you're not making any choices. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. You're part of a team, and it's really just about being 100% accurate every time.
Executing, and that's it. Yeah.
Executing it. And so one of the great things about not doing that, let's say, is that, like again, an orchestra is like, okay, we have our repertoire. Here's Beethoven's Fifth. Here's, whatever, the Mahler 5, Mahler, whatever, all these pieces, and again, that's great for Mahler's Ghosts and for Beethoven's Ghosts. Maybe, who knows if they can even hear it wherever they are right now, if you want to get onto that level. It's like, I mean, this is my theory, because again, like we think, I mean, and it's not that music isn't cool and that we can't learn from it, but what I don't like is that is often sold to us as like the ultimate music.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. I'm not saying that it's not great on its own, but I'm like, somebody like that who's like, you might play them some Ornette Coleman that they like, but they're like, but I'm still going with Beethoven and Mozart. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Like, we don't use computers from 10 years ago. Well, some people do, but still, like, I don't use my phone from 20 years ago. You know what I mean? But so how come we're still in like many centuries ago as like the ultimate music? It kind of doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
So I'm not saying that everything now is great, but I'm saying like we need to adjust. And I mean, I think every music has the right to exist. So I think some people put certain music on a pedestal just because that's what everybody else did and that's what they were taught to do. For myself, I mean, I went to Peabody Conservatory to do classical trumpet and music ed too. And it's just, I don't know, some of that was because of Wynton Marsalis. Like,
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, well, I think it's his first record where the liner notes say like, oh, everybody thinks that jazz trumpeters can't really play the horn. So I set out to really prove that I could play the instrument in addition to playing jazz. And so I was like, well, I got to get my classical together in order to be better at jazz. Now, on piano, I did not have years of classical training. I'm mostly self-taught as a pianist.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
So I've kind of proven, I mean, I went back and, worked on some things, but I think I've kind of proven that you don't need, and I think this is something that needs to be really evaluated in at least the American jazz curriculum, is how many hours of classical training do you need to play jazz? And I think the more time that goes on, I think less is better, because if you're like, well, I need to be able to play every Mozart sonata before I get to Bud Powell, that's ridiculous. Exactly. That doesn't make any sense. So
it's just about the reading skills, I think. It's
reading, and to me that's but the other thing too to consider, again, in terms of what music is important to me, at the end of the day, it's the music that you care about.
Yeah.
And like for me, I mean, I care about playing jazz and I care about playing my own songs. And that's what I'm passionate about. And, so that's in the moment, and that's related to me as an artist and as a human being. I don't want to do something that somebody else thinks I should do. I want to do what I want. At this stage, I'm 54. So, but my theory, I don't know. I feel like, again, we're playing, again, a classical orchestra would be like, we're playing Beethoven's Fifth. Why? Well, because it's a great piece of music, and because Beethoven is just Beethoven is, you know,
Yeah.
he's here, right? But again, what's Beethoven doing now? Well, he's been dead for quite some time, you know. What if he could hear, what if you could get the message to him, hey, they're playing your Fifth Symphony. Did you know that? Did you know that the New York Phil right now is giving a performance of your Fifth Symphony? I mean, think about how many years have gone by
Yeah.
in the afterlife. We don't even, I mean, Beethoven is like, you know what I mean? He's probably like, oh, yeah, the Fifth Symphony. I don't even really remember that. You know, it was so long ago. I'm not even into that now. You know, have you ever checked out Robert Glasper? You know, he'd be like, man, I'm trying to get with Kenny Kirkland. You know, like, I'm trying to figure that stuff out. You know what I mean? Like he's probably like doesn't even remember.
It is
like,
overrated. Yeah.
That old stuff. You know that if Mozart was alive today, he would be a jazz musician. Definitely. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because he liked to improvise, and he liked to party too. So that's a whole other thing.
No, it's true. We improvise. We read the heaviest shit out there, whatever it is, and then we improvise on top of that, or freely improvise or whatever. So I think it is the highest level. You have to compose in the moment actually. So. And
well, that's the thing. Again, it's like to me, that's like in a way, like, I mean, oftentimes when a classical piece is played on the radio, you remember the composer, but you don't remember who played it, like because it's not
exactly. It's true. Yep.
I think that's sad.
Yep.
But you get both things with jazz. You get, I mean, somebody like Bud Powell was a composer and a performer. Monk was a performer, and I mean, there's so many. Not every great jazz player is known for composition, but to me, their composing is their improvisation.
Yeah,
they're creating in the moment. They play what they like, and to me, even somebody like Oscar Peterson, who I hold in the highest esteem as a jazz musician, but I think he gets a raw deal because they're like, oh, he played the same, but it's still his own. You're hearing him. It's like if I don't know if you're familiar with Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh, sure. I love Jerry. Yeah, I still watch it. Yeah.
So, yeah, Seinfeld was big in the 90s.
Yeah.
And he became, but, he's been doing, in fact, he just did a special on Netflix where he did
I saw that. Yeah.
His old jokes, and I'm like, didn't he do these in the 90s, but like people love it. People love it. And they're still his jokes.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do that necessarily, but I feel like that's not the worst thing. Like if you go to see the Rolling Stones and they don't play Satisfaction, you're going to be like, what the heck? Like, yeah, we got some new stuff, They got to play, sometimes you got to play the hits.
Yep.
So for Oscar Peterson, if he went out and he's like, well, I'm kind of into some free jazz now, I think people would be disappointed. You're like, they want to hear Oscar Peterson do the Oscar Peterson stuff.
Yep. And
on down the line. So, anyway, maybe we have time for one more question or something.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's we could talk probably for hours. Like we haven't touched Buster and Gary Thomas and all these guys, but since you don't have too much time, like what's on the schedule for you for the upcoming months, record-wise and touring-wise? Are you any plans to coming to Europe or?
I've been to Europe twice since the pandemic. We went once with Buster. We did a little tour, and I was in. I don't know if the UK and Ireland still counts as Europe, but I mean,
it's okay.
I was there in the spring with some Irish musicians and a Belgian saxophone player, and we're gonna do something next year for sure. We did the bass player's recording. His name is Dave Redmond. Came out great studio in Dublin.
Really
But we're gonna do more because that was kind of a nice trio. We did a record called Live at Arklow. And that was again before the pandemic. We had plans to tour. So, but we're gonna do that again next year. I'm gonna try to take a sabbatical, so I'm gonna try to do some more touring. Just a few things here and there. I'm gonna go back to the East Coast in January. A couple things in California. What else? Not a whole lot. I'm gonna release, like I said, maybe this record with
Oh man,
DeJohnette and Linda O. Sometimes next year.
it's a
I have
must.
this record, this band that I play drums in. I'm gonna put out a record of that's been sitting in the can. That'll come out in the winter time.
Fantastic.
But mostly stand a little bit more around here. I have a lot of private students now, and I have a lot of students now who are out in the world. Like, I don't know if you've heard of Nicole Glover, but she's been playing
Yeah.
with everybody.
Yeah.
Nicole McCabe, and I have a bunch of other students who are really coming on strong. So I'm kind of enjoying.
That's great. Yeah.
Maybe we can do a part 2 at some point.
Yeah, definitely. Or if you come to Europe, drop me a line.
Okay.
We